I'm Jen Drummond. Welcome to my podcast, Take a Break. Take a Break is about enhancing and preserving the greatest asset you have, you. I am introducing Kathryn Gordon, who is a wife, mother, businesswoman, movie producer, best-selling author, relationship grit, and the host of the Kathryn for Real podcast. So she is here today to tell us relationship goodies, which I'm so excited about. And I've read your book. I actually went through if you buy the book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, you can log onto their site and you get this little book that you get to go work through. I've done that just to go through the exercises. 100% worth it. And you get so many fun stories about your relationship with John. And it's truth. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between. And I see you both now. And it's authentically amazing. Yeah. Right. You can't hide authenticity.
No. And that's just it. I think you said it. It wasn't always good. I mean, that was a part of it. Like we really went through hell together, and we share that in the book. When I tell people I wrote a best-selling book on, called Relationship Grit, I'm sure they're looking at me like, oh, great. Another book about how great your relationship is. Well, that is not what our book is about. Our book is, it's the story of our struggles and what we went through and then how we overcame them. So it's written, and we wrote it right before the pandemic. A lot of people are like, did you write it during the pandemic? No, but let me tell you, we needed our own book during the pandemic. I'm not kidding you, because John, the year before had literally done 87 speaking engagements, traveling on the road. He was hardly home. And all of a sudden COVID hit and he was with me 24/7. And we are so different. And so we really had to kind of figure out how to live together. So, but yeah, we wrote the book, and it's really just, we sat down, and he would sit down and write his chapter, John's side. And then I would sit down at his computer, and then I would write Kathryn's side, and we kind of would go back and forth like that. Yeah. And
That's
then put
amazing.
the tips in the back. Yeah.
Isn't that funny how you wrote it just in time to be able to use it for COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Life works out like that.
Yeah, it really does. And the neatest thing about my book is getting people will send emails and share, their takeaways from the book. And I just got an email from an 87-year-old woman. Sherry Chait is her name. I said, can I use your testimonial? And she was like, yes. And her husband, Jerry, who's 92.
Oh my God, I love this.
Oh my gosh. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm shouting this one to the rooftops. And she talked about how she said so she said something like, well, I came out with my tea and I was really snipping at him. And then I thought about what I had read in your book, and I turned around and gave him a compliment. It was the cutest thing, but it was like, this just goes to show you, I don't care where you are in your relationship, you can always do better. Yeah. Right? You can always do better. So yeah, I thought that was really cute. But yeah, so we've been through a lot. We've been through sickness, as you know, with my breast implant illness, and some infidelity. And, we've really come in on the other side of a lot of things. So,
and the thing is you start, it's such a cute start, right? So you started where he at a bar, you walk in, he's interested in you. You're not interested because that's not your lifestyle. Totally. Yep. And then you run into him at a food festival type thing. Right. Yes. And then that's kind of fadey. And then he doesn't leave you alone. And then you finally say, okay, because it was like the last time or never.
Yep.
And then once you both got together, it went fast. Like it was, and then your mom passed away before the wedding. I mean, it was everything, right?
Oh my gosh, Jen, I read this. You did read it, and you have a good memory. And all of that is true. Yeah. I was 28 and John was 24, and my past was I was a drinker, and I did a lot of recreational drugs, and I'd done that since I was 13.
Wow.
And at the age of, I literally moved in with my boyfriend at 16, who was a cocaine dealer. And so, that'll tell you what path I was going down. And around 24, just kind of really hit rock bottom. And not in the way that you think. I think being a young woman in Atlanta, and I was in a very much a mover and shaker type crowd. It wasn't like the rock bottom, like
Right.
think of.
Right.
So, and that can be difficult because people just continue to give you whatever you want. But for me, it was just a place of like, I can't do this anymore. And literally hit my knees, prayed to God, and just said, help me. And changed my life, got into an amazing group of spiritual women. And so while my friends at that age were, running out to the bars, I was, going to like meditation groups and, energy healing. At the time, I was very new age. I was raised Catholic, but not like a church, mass goer. I always say like, we just went Christmas and Easter.
Sisters. We are sisters.
There you go.
Sister story. Yes.
Right. There you go. Yeah. And so, but changed my life. So anyway, it just wasn't that whole bar scene. So when I walked by John in front of a bar,
Right.
and he's like, oh, hey, I'm thinking, oh gosh. And, to know John now, he's not a drinker. And so, but when I met him for our first date, he had a Captain Morgan's and Coke and was like sucking it down. I'm like, alcoholic, bar owner, which is funny because he's none of that.
Right.
So yeah, but it was so I guess what I was going to tell you is that I had done so much work on myself, like so much therapy and so much self-discovery that, I was able to be in a relationship with John that was probably, was healthier than I had been in. But,
right.
It
still wasn't awesome in the beginning. And when I look at the relationship, you had to have done so much work on yourself because you're so strong and being able to hold the space. Mm-hmm. And you were so willing to say, okay, we both come in with baggage, blah, 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 blah. And then John would get to a point, but when you would put the ultimatum up, he would snap, right? Like he'd turn around, he'd do the thing. And so then you figured out a way to get there before the ultimatums came.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's
yeah. And that's exactly right. We do talk about that in the book. Like everything was like the romance, we were in love and, got married, got the house, had the kids, but you know what? Then life and stress kick in. And, it was a lot of pressure for him. And, right. It's a lot of pressure to perform. And he was very much a manly man in that. And what I mean is, from the get-go, he took on that role. You drive the nice car. I'm paying all the bills. He paid off my college loans. Right. That's pretty awesome. So, like he did take on that role, but it also caused him a lot of stress.
Right.
So then that started to backfire and, he would take it out on me, right? He would take it out on me. And, so yeah, we started to have a lot of problems. And the other thing I share is that in there, I was very, very busy with these young kids. I had breast implants that were filled with a black mold called Aspergillus nigus that almost killed me.
And he didn't understand. Like even your friend drove you to and from the hospital.
Yep.
It's just, it was almost like it was so bad. He couldn't even hold it was just, was the tip of the iceberg.
It was awful. And, I gotta be careful. I've always got to be careful to share those stories because he is not that person that he was back then. But I'm telling you, he was an asshole. Excuse my language. I hope I can do that. But he really was, he was just very, very self-involved and didn't want to be bothered. And so, I was so sick. Our neighbors took me to the hospital and, I did have to give that ultimatum. We had moved down to Florida to try and start a better life for ourselves. And he was just coming in so negative, so miserable. And when I gave him the ultimatum, Jen, he kind of turned it around on me and just said, like, yeah, well, you're the one making me miserable. I'm miserable and negative because of you. And up to that point, I was kind of like fighting with him. But, when someone says that to you, it's kind of like, wow, yeah. Oh, and it hurt. And I'm like, well, then you know what? We don't need to be together. And that's when he was like, oh my gosh, what am I saying? Then he, realized, and that kind of started the process. But, the other thing that really changed his heart is, John was Jewish, and I never pressured him to be a Christian, even though it was his own path. And we were, like I said, pretty new agey at the time, more into like energy work. And so, but no, he started getting signs. Like, it was like, crazy, like the things that were happening. And he actually went to a guy we used to go to who was our Buddhist energy healer, that he would do body work on us. He was an amazing man, and started questioning and having these conversations with him. And he's the one that explained to John, who Jesus really was. And John was like, oh, I'm going to be a follower. That's it. Yeah, it was really cool. And so that's, John started to learn more about that. So John really became a great human being because of that. Also, I know, and I don't ever want anyone to feel like, oh, well, that's never going to happen. If you have a different religion, it's not about that. I don't mean that. But what I do mean is, I think it's important to have a spiritual connection and a foundation of beliefs. Right.
Well, so in the book, for those that are listening, GRIT stands for G's for God, R's for resolve, I's for invest, and T is for together. Mm-hmm. But God, in the sense that that's what worked for you two, but really he's talking about that soul connection, that thing that can anchor you together, that gets to be the third chord that really puts you guys down a path working together. And that doesn't necessarily have to be used as the term God for all of us.
Right.
If that doesn't resonate for you.
Right.
But what does resonate is that deep sense of belonging to each other with someone else, kind of keeping an eye to the energy working in your favor, right?
Yeah.
I guess
like a higher power, right?
A higher power, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Principles and
yeah. Everything that you have that language to now navigate your relationship from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that is really where this shift started, right? I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. He became a better husband, a better father, and a better human being.
Yeah. And the reality is looking at the story and looking at him now, right? The energy that he gives, it was always there. He just hadn't worked through some hurts. So he didn't know how to get to that space, is what it looks like to me. And obviously it had to look like that to you because you allowed him to get there. And now look where you guys are.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. We all come to our relationships with our past hurts, our traumas, and our baggage. I don't care how much you work on yourself, right? There's always, if you're human, there's always stuff. And so it's really about trying to figure out how to navigate through that. Some of it is talking to yourself instead of listening to yourself. Like, you start to hear those negative voices, that can really, distort reality. You've got to speak truth to the lies.
Yeah.
So it's some of that, but to think you're going to meet somebody that's not going to have any issues is just not really realistic. And, I have a lot of friends that are, now in midlife, and for whatever reason, maybe their relationship the first time didn't work out. Maybe they got married young, whatever it was. And now they're navigating relationships with somebody who's already been married, somebody that has children, you have children. So it's all about what you're bringing to the table, what kind of level of understanding. And communication is so huge. Where there's a void in communication, negativity will fill it. And that is John Gordon's quote. I'll give him credit for that, but it's the truth. You know, how many times, if you are wondering something, but you don't really know, and you haven't really talked about it, you might be thinking something, come to find out it's not at all what you were thinking. Right. Whereas if you just talked about it and you just communicated, you know. And
yeah. I have an example of this that is like from that communication standpoint. So I was climbing a mountain in Nepal, and I was the only person sitting there that spoke English. So then I'm listening, like everybody's having conversations in a different language, and I'm making up in my head negative thoughts. And I'm sitting there thinking, they don't even speak my language, right? And so my head's going to automatically be, why didn't you say hi to me or look at me or do whatever I could possibly think of? And anytime that I can start hearing that voice in my head just start running,
yep,
I'm like, oh, you're funny. Like, no one's even, it's not even about you right now. Just an FYI.
It's the truth. I mean, I have literally had to just stop what I'm doing and yell, like, stop, you know, and try to replace it with a positive thought. You know, we can get so carried away with our negative thoughts, right?
Oh, right.
So.
No, exactly. I've even used the example because now I podcast and you do too. So you have these microphones all the time.
Yeah.
And I tell my son, who in your head has the microphone right now? Okay. Ask for the microphone back give it to another one of your people in your head. And what would that person say if they had the microphone? The only reason why you're hearing what you're hearing is because that's who you gave the microphone to.
Ooh,
yeah, it helps.
Good. That's a good one.
All right. So resolve, right? So let's get to the R and the grit.
Okay.
One of the examples in the book talks about how John used to have jealousy issues. Mm-hmm. And how did you guys navigate through that or get to the other side? Because I think that's a common thing for all of us. Yeah. Substitute John for Jen, for Kathryn, for whoever.
Funny you bringing that up, because John Gordon still has jealousy issues. And he is just kind of a jealous guy. And I don't say that in a way, I'm flattered a little bit, like, you know, it's not unhealthy in the way he does it, but sometimes I laugh. I think to myself, really? Like the things that he'll say, he'll say something and I'm thinking to myself, that 27-year-old kid has no interest in me, you know. But I'm like, thank you for seeing me with such rose-colored glasses. But he does, but it can get unhealthy. And so I know what your question really is there. And he's a jealous guy. You know, it's a couple things. It's the communication part, but again, I mean, the way we navigate it is, I think if you are living authentically and operating from that place, there's not a lot of room for jealousy.
Right.
But if your partner is doing things that, and let's not discount our intuition right now. Right. Some of it can be distortion, right? It can be the negative thoughts in our head, but some, you know, it's a feeling. So I think that's where it's above board. So look, because John and I have had some trust issues in the past a long time ago, there are just some things, like for me, that he knows that I'm going to do that are going to make me feel better. Sometimes if he's been traveling a lot and we haven't been connected, I might pick up his phone and look at it. And I you know, truth be told, or go to his computer. I do. I'm just like, he knows it too. And vice versa. Like he might, but for the most part, it is about, you know, the communication and the respect. And also that kind of falls under with the 4 C's. That one would really fall more under commit and care.
Right.
Well, communicate. It's all four C's.
It's all four C's. Communicate, connect, commit, care.
and care.
Yeah.
Because when you have that, there's not as much room for jealousy. But to say like, no one's ever going to get jealous, it's not realistic.
Right. But it's what you do when you have that feeling.
Yes.
Right. So the feeling shows up. You have a mutual understanding that phones, computers are open for each one of you. And that's because you care. You want to connect. That there's no intention behind any of it. So,
Yep. Yeah. Now, there is another side to this that I think is important to share. Okay. And it's a personal one for me, but people seem to resonate with it. There have been times in our relationship when it maybe not so much jealousy, meaning, you know, I think he's cheating on me, but just insecurity, where I tell the story about the time our kids were in middle school and they were in elite sports. And so I was literally traveling. I was staying in all these different crappy hotels and couldn't eat healthy food. I was not taking care of myself.
Right.
And John was traveling around the world. Everybody wanted to hear John Gordon come speak. And, you know, I would say like, oh, it must be great to go sit in that hotel room. You can watch whatever you want. You can go eat whatever you want. Right. You know,
right.
Like,
oh yeah, no, exactly. So you can work out. No one's interrupting you.
Right.
You're not sweating on the side of a sport field for the third time that day.
Oh, it'd be like 104 degrees watching my son play tennis. It was awful. So, you know, and so one day he walks in, he's, you know, wheeling his little suitcase. He's got his suit on. He looks so handsome.
Oh.
And I was in my nightgown. The kids were running late for the bus. I'm trying to make lunches. My hair was disheveled. I hadn't been working out. And I wanted to cut him down. I mean, I wanted to say something so, you know, mean to like kind of put him in his place.
Right.
But something hit me and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to compliment him. And I turned around and I was like, John Gordon, you look so handsome in that suit. You better watch yourself. Some girl's going to be checking you out. And Jen, he just like turned and he got this big, like kid smile on his face. And he was like, and you know, it just like, it completely diffused my jealousy and insecurity.
Yeah.
And I realized, Kathryn, you're doing this because you don't feel good about yourself.
Right. Right.
Would you have even had that thought if you felt good about? I wouldn't have. But the way to counter that is to compliment others or lift others up. Right. So that was kind of a big lesson for me. So, you know, because jealousy is going to creep in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it might be warranted. In that case, if you've got a partner who's making you feel jealous, communication, connection, commitment, you know, all of those for sure. Yeah.
Right. And it goes into our next letter, which is I for invest. I've noticed that when I get resentful like that, what am I not giving myself? Ooh. I'm the only one who's making me be in this spot.
That's good.
Right. Sometimes we have the financial resources to have help, but we don't have the story around it that permits it.
Oh, absolutely. Jen, what you just said is so good. Thank you for saying that. I love that because a lot of times when I talk about invest, I'm always talking about with the other person, but oh my gosh, what you just said, you're absolutely right. Also invest in yourself. And yeah, we do have stories around, I still do. So John kind of makes fun of me. It's kind of a side note here, but you know, because I could have hired help at different points in our life. I mean, there were times we were completely broke. So,
right.
But you know, because I came from where I came from, I'm not quick to spend money to the point. Sometimes literally he would say to me, stop being so cheap, like spend the money, right? Get yourself some help.
Right.
But it is hard because you do have that, you know, that storyline around, you know,
yes, self-care is selfish and having to break out of that story.
But also in investing in the relationship, the other thing is think about with our relationships, a lot of times they're the last person we are investing in because you have 7 kids, or, you're working your career. I mean, there's so many other things pulling your direction that you just expect for your significant other to just be there.
Right.
And vice versa, right? Same with them. And so, no, it is about taking that time. And, for John and I, and this was hard to do when our kids were little, for sure. We couldn't do it. And so we'd find other things to do. But, as the kids got older, we go take walks on the beach. And I always say, let me tell you something. Sometimes those walks were fights. I mean, I would just be going at him. I'm going to be like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I'm really glad we did this. But you know what? Always by the end, it's like, you get to a good point, because sometimes you just got to talk about things. So
Right.
Yeah. You got to.
What I found for me, because you just get in the flow, right? Which is why this podcast is called Take a Break. We need to take a break from our stories. We need to take a break from our pattern. We need to take a break from our flow, because if we're in the flow and we take a break, it's still going to continue, but it allows us to say, are we heading down the right path? Is this the way we want to go? Is this how we want it to look? And I bought this calendar this year. That's the whole year up on a wall.
Okay.
And what I did is I color code, because I wanted to make sure that how I was spending my time was really how I wanted to be spending my time. And I'm a visual person, so I needed to see it. And it's allowed me to say, okay, kid time, am I getting enough time with them? Because when I go climb mountains, I'm gone for a long time, and I need to counterbalance that. And so it allows you to just visually see, okay, first I'm booking my kids in, then I'm booking my climbs in, then I'm booking some girl trips in or whatever. And then anything else is guilt-free time spent on work or different things like that, that allow my priorities to be spent the way my time lines out.
Yep.
That's been
wow.
helpful.
Okay. So when we're done with this podcast, or at some time in the next couple of days, you're leaving Wednesday.
Yes.
I want to see a picture of that calendar.
Yes.
I am also visual, and I would love a little assistance in that. I love that.
Yes. Yes. So of the 4 C's, right? The communicate, connect, commit, care. What's the easiest one for you to do?
For me, communicate.
Communicate. What about John?
Probably connect, have sex. No.
Yeah, no, hey, that's allowed.
It's a guy
That's
thing, right? It's a guy
Right.
thing. It's a guy thing. No,
It is a guy thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably connect, or his would be connect. Mine's that's one positive, I think, and that helped us with our relationship, is that I am a communicator, because he's not. Put it this way, John Gordon can be on a call for 2 hours with somebody. And I mean, a really good phone call, and I'm hearing some stuff. I'm like, oh, this is good. Hang up the phone. I'll go, how did it go? What happened? Oh, it was great. We're going to da-da-da. I'm like, you just had a 2-hour. Just not a good communicator in that way. So yeah.
But you know it about each other, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
At this stage of the game, we do. Yeah. So do you want to talk about the last letter, which is T?
T, together. Yes.
Yeah.
Because in this section, you talk a little bit about some weeds that sometimes can grow in your relationship and clearing them out. So obviously you've probably done that before. So tell us about some weeds that you've cleared out.
Ooh. I mean, I think the weeds would be more some of our expectations with each other, what I expect from John and what he expects from me, and making sure that we're not letting those lines cross, that there's no clutter. I mean, we're still dealing with a weed right now. I told you that, he's been home a lot more. Of course, we're over COVID, and he is traveling more. But we have a small little place out in LA that we come out to. And so there's not a lot of space for stuff. And because I'm visual,
it's sensitive to what that looks like. Yes.
I like to lay everything out when I'm working, right? John Gordon is a super, super, like, if it were up to him, there would be nothing in this condo, nothing. And so, he's trying to work and I'm trying to work. And then I've got my stuff laid out. And then so it's about like, okay, little things like do the one dish that's in the sink. I'm the one that doesn't care. Like I'm really okay with a fork or a knife in the sink. Oh my gosh, drives John crazy.
Oh,
So
funny.
that's one of the weeds that were
Yes.
like, okay, fine. I'm going to do the dishes when he's around because I know that makes him happy. So,
That's good.
it's just a constant, it's like anything. Well, when you say the weeds, you could talk about the grass grows, you still need to cut the grass. Right. So, it's like you're always kind of working on your relationship. Yeah.
And now so John's always been the one out speaking for the most part, and you supporting him and holding that space for him. And now you're branching out and doing all these amazing things. So that's an adjustment too, right? Navigating that together and individually.
It really is. And I'm writing another book. I start in July. It's going to be a good one. Hey, the title, but so I'm writing another book and started my podcast. I call this my second act. If you follow me at all, it's kind of like, okay, I've raised my kids and now I'm going to do some fun stuff. And it is a balance because there are times when it's kind of like, sometimes I'm feeling a lot of stress and I've got so much to do, like onboarding this assistant that I'm doing right now. And every once in a while, I'll kind of lash out at John and be like, I need your help. You need to help me. Why aren't you helping me? And so sometimes on our walks, he'll go, you do know you don't have to do this, right? Like,
right. This is a choice, honey.
Yeah. Like you wanted to do this. So, don't come at me so much. So yeah, in that way, but I'm having so much fun. And you know what? I just feel like it's my time to share with others things that are going to help them in their lives because I've lived it. Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so if I can, and that's kind of how it started, to be honest, Jen, is I was in the grocery store and my daughter was a lacrosse player and I saw one of the moms who her daughter was on Jade's lacrosse team. And so we were difference, meaning that Jade was my oldest, but I had a son that was right behind him that was getting ready to go off to college. And her daughter was her oldest, but she had little ones. Like she still had them in middle school and elementary. And literally she like kind of saddled me in the, in the carrot and apple aisle and just like really just went on and started crying about how stressed she was, how her and her husband were having issues, how the kids. And I literally stood there for an hour and just kind of counseled her.
Right.
And I got home and I wrote a Facebook post, not about her, but just some advice about this time in our lives. If you're in this time of your life, it's, the fight of your life.
This is your season. This is
it like went viral. I didn't mean for that to happen, but I gave like very practical tips on how, and it was definitely probably directed more towards moms because we are the ones responsible for a lot of times raising the kids. And so that's when I realized like, wow, people are starving for this information and they need help and they need guidance because like you say, it's sometimes it's like hard to, you don't want to say you're defeated and you don't want to seem like you're not together, but it's hard. Like we all need that support.
Right. Yeah, we just all need to be seen.
Yep.
And understand that not normalizing the discomfort, but understanding that that's part of the journey. Yeah. And when you get through those points that were almost going to break you, you become stronger and you become break proof. Right. And that's why I'm going down this road of take a break proof, Jen. In those breaks, you have a choice. And if you can be on the same team and work together, now you've got that one covered and know that another thing's going to come up because we kind of live for the journey. We live for the overcoming. We live for the stories that we want to write.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a good point. Yeah. That's true. I mean, that's what life's all about. Like, we're not, no one's going to get out of this life, without hardship. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And those are good stories. Those are the
Yeah.
stories we share,
Yeah.
right? That's how we connect to each other. So.
And don't you think that those are things that we can also teach our kids? I mean, how to navigate life, how to navigate relationships, how to be in touch with your emotions. These are all a part of it. Yep.
I love it. I love it. And I love you. I knew I was going to love you before I even called you. I'm like, we just have this connection for some reason.
I know.
Yes. So people can buy the book. Please do it because it's so good. And it gives you little tips and tidbits and stories that just help relate to yourself.
Yeah.
And then I love your podcast. I think it's fun.
Yeah. Yes. And I can't wait to have you on my podcast.
I know, I'm excited to be a guest. It'll be fun.
So with the book, I always like to tell people, and you got the action plan, but I have a free action plan that you can get when you buy the book. And it really is a cool little, it could be an ebook, but I give it for free. I don't mind. And it has things like, for communicate, ask your partner on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do I communicate? And what would make it a 10? Right. So it's those kind of things.
Those measurement things help.
I don't mind giving my email because if anybody, and I do have people reach out to me that have specific issues that they might need help with. I'm not a therapist and I don't claim to be, but I could certainly just give advice from, where I come from. So if they they want to message me on Instagram at Kathryn Gordon, they can do that. I have my website, kathrynforreal.com. You can email me through there. Yeah. And I love connecting with people. And and I've got a new book coming out. I can't talk about it yet, but it's going to be good.
Exciting.
But thank you for having me, Jen. I really
thank you for giving us relationship advice and just some tools to work with. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.